Ved hjælp af øjenvidneskildringer og autentiske optagelser skildrer aftenens skræmmende dokumentar historien om 3 brutale døgn for en gruppe muslimske flygtninge.
It's just 4 years now since Saliha Osmanovic buried her son here. This is the first time she's been able to return to Srebrenica, where he was killed.
Mama rodila, najsrećnija sam bila. Uj, kako ste me slušali. Učili mami školu dobro i sve to sad. Jer će majka odgroti me, za čim se vrati. Život. Nisi sine zaradio da ovakvom trnju ležiš, ono moja. Sama ti je mama bome sine došla, ni babe ni brata nemaš.
On July 11th, 1995, 5 days after Saliha Osmanovic's son was killed, the Muslim town of Srebrenica in eastern Bosnia fell to the Bosnian Serb army. The world's first United Nations safe area became the site of the worst massacre in Europe since World War II. Mrs. Osmanovic's husband, Ramo, and second son, Nermin, attempted to escape. Ramo was captured by Serb soldiers, and for a moment, by a Serb cameraman.
Hajde dolamo, ja sam dolamo!
Kod koga, kaži?
Kod Rame!
Pa jevo te, Ramo, kaži kod Srba.
Kod Srba!
Tako, kaži kod Srba.
Nermine! Hajde dolam, ja sam dolamo, slobodno kod Srba! Svi ajte!
This is the last glimpse of Ramo Osmanovic. Saliha Osmanovic's husband and son disappeared, becoming part of a terrible statistic, the 7,414 missing men of Srebrenica.
Na filmu ono što je bilo. I vidjela sam ga ja, on zove Nermina. Ovako stavio ruke i zove Nermina. I zove ga hajdolam babi.
Nermine!
Ekran, brzina je tu, znaš, ali fino ja vidim mog muža, vidim odjeću šta je na njemu i vidim da je on.
Svi ajte! Nermine!
In the old salt mines under the Muslim town of Tuzla, they still store more than 1,000 nameless bodies from Srebrenica. Coming to this awful place It's impossible to escape the reality that this happened in Europe at the end of the 20th century. Today, like thousands of other women of Srebrenica, Saliha Osmanovic still waits for news of her husband and son. Now, on the 4th anniversary of the massacre, Saliha is making a painful journey. Along with hundreds of other widows and survivors of Srebrenica, she's going back for the first time into Serbian territory and to the place where it all began.
Mi moramo njima zajam vratiti. Moramo četnicima vrat zajam.
Moja djeco, moja odavlezi je mladića.
This was the base for 450 Dutch UN peacekeepers just outside Srebrenica. The Dutch soldiers were responsible for watching over the first United Nations safe area. But between the 11th and the 14th of July, 1995, faced with 25,000 desperate refugees, the UN peacekeepers and the international community stood by as men were separated from women by the Bosnian Serb army. Within a few days, thousands of men were massacred in nearby fields, schools and warehouses. Four years later, the women of Srebrenica are still looking for the bodies of their men and for answers from the world which looked on and did nothing.
Sjećaju se ljudi u Bosni koja je ovo noć i koji će nastupiti dani. Moje misli su neprekidno zakupljene jednim Srebrenica 11. juli 1995. godina. Presjećam se trenutka u kome sam posljednji put gledala, nisam vas čak uspjela ni poljubiti.
Poklonjam Fatihu svim našim sinovima, moja dva i sviju majki po 5 i po 2, poklonjamo im Fatihu. Što su i dušmani pobili, što su i dušmani, holandski dušmani, četnički dušmani su ih pobili, niko drugi. Samo holandski dušmani, četnički, niko više. Holandjani, ako ima ovdje novinara od Holandjana, recite mi ko je. Molim vas, ako ima holandski ovdje novinar, recite mi ga, dajte mi ga, da mu ja sudim.
Hasan Nohanovic lost his entire family here.
My mother, I know that she's dead. But I want to know what happened to my brother, what happened to my father. Then, when I know that, I want to know where their bodies are, to bury them properly, to be identified, if possible, of course. And also, I want to know who killed them, and I want all these murderers to be arrested and punished. Otherwise, I will never find peace in my life.
Oh, I think there's no doubt that something went wrong, horribly wrong. Srebrenica remains the worst massacre in Europe since World War II. It's also taken on a significance of its own, I think. It's crying out for an explanation, not just of what the Serbs did in Srebrenica and to the people of Srebrenica, but also what the international community did or didn't do and what it could have done.
The enormity of what happened at Srebrenica in July 1995 overwhelms understanding. Now a bewildered world looks to the methodical processes of international justice to deal with the brutal mess of genocide. Jean-René Ruiz is a former French policeman from Marseille. Now he's the chief investigator into the Srebrenica massacre for the International War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague. For 4 years, he's been working to uncover the awful truth of what happened in July 1995.
More and more flesh on them. What we are talking about is a crime against humanity. And a crime against humanity is a crime committed against every single one of us. So indeed, there is a lot of effort put in it by everyone who participates in such an investigation to make sure that the situation is dealt with properly in the interest of the victims, but also in the interest of everyone, to make sure that all these atrocities are indeed properly recorded and frozen into history.
Since 1995, Srebrenica has been ethnically cleaned and is an entirely Serb town. We kept coming back, trying to understand what happened here. The memory of the massacre has been erased, along with thousands of people who were once here.
Srebrenica, grad čiji počeci dosežu do rimskih vremena. Negdašnja Domavija danas je lijepo banjsko klimatsko lječilište.
For the 9,000 people who lived in Srebrenica before the war began in 1992, life was comfortable. 3/4 of the population were Muslim, the rest Serb. But under the long communist rule of Marshal Tito, most people had paid little attention to their neighbor's religion. Nearby factories and mines paid good wages, and the spa brought tourists to this remote area of eastern Bosnia.
Čist vazduh i povoljni klimatski uslovi čine ovaj kraj prirodno predodređenim za razvoj stacionarnog, zimskog i ljetnjeg planinskog turizma.
Zumra Shekomerovic lived with her Muslim family in a house near the town center for 27 years.
Pa prije rata sam živjela u svojoj porodičnoj kući sa svojim mužem i sa svoje 2 djece. Živjelo se fino jer smo radili, zarađivali za život. Imali nekakav normalan život. Da smo mogli da imamo i auto i da odemo na godišnji odmor i da odemo na izlet. Ovo sam ja sa mojim mužem davne 1970. godine. Ovo je moj muž sa svojim sinom u Makarskoj na moru 1978. godine. Ovo je slika na zabavi na dočeku 1972. godine u hotel Domaviji. Tad sam dobila nagradu za najljepšu frizuru. Sve to tako bilo do i početkom 1992. godine. Mene je rat zatekao u Srebrenici sa svojim mužem.
The war came early to eastern Bosnia and to Srebrenica. Only 10 miles from the border with Serbia, the town was a coveted target for Serb nationalists dreaming of creating a greater Serbia. Over the next 3 years, the town was to become a hostage in the savage ethnic war which was consuming Bosnia and was in the end to consume the people of Srebrenica.
Momci, pravac, bratunac, ne ovamo!
The story of Srebrenica may seem to be a freakish throwback to medieval savagery, but it's essentially a story of our times, a catastrophe witnessed by camcorder. A British reporter finds his way through the surrounding Serb forces to reach Srebrenica. His camera records the desperate situation of 60,000 Muslim refugees trapped in the town.
There was no food, there was nothing worked at all. There were no shops, there was no electricity, there was no water, so slowly we realized that we were going to have big problems with food, especially. And by the end of '92, in the beginning of '93, people almost, they starved to death, and my family was in terrible situation.
Pa imala sam jednu sobu, kupatilo i hodnik, prođi mi. Pa 60 nas bilo tu u stanu, u kući tu jedno. I sve to jedna WC, sve jedna. Loše, skroz loše, eto. Nikako, ali bilo mi opet dobro. Satoš, haj preživit ćeš, haj vraćaš se kući, nikad.
Serb cameras record the menacing power of the forces besieging the town for 3 years from the surrounding mountains.
Šta je budu isporaj? Jes budu ranji? Šta je?
There were these bombardments all the day, and even bombardments were not so terrible as the fact that Serb troops and Chetniks, as we call them, were so near the place that you could expect any time of day or night that they, break through the defense lines and come and kill you, with a knife. That's what we were afraid of.
A Muslim warlord and defender of Srebrenica, Nasser Oric, stokes his legend as a scourge of the Serbs with heroic images from his camcorder.
Legendarni komandant Nasser Oric.
Morali smo, nismo imali izbora. Bili smo u jednom velikom okruženju i mi nismo imali izbora ništa drugo no da se branimo. Morali smo se braniti svim mogućim raspoloživim sredstvima. Znači, i poštujući i nepoštujući Ženevsku konvenciju. I srpska strana i muslimanska. Znači, samo što su oni bili u boljem položaju no mi. Oni su imali tehniku, imali su i logistiku, imali su i sve živo su imali. Dok mi smo imali smo samo goli život, a ono sve ostalo morali smo da se snađemo. Znači, to je.
As the Muslim refugees in Srebrenica grow more desperate, raids by Nasser Oric on surrounding villages, followed by ravenous bands of scavengers, become more frequent and more bloody.
Na Boži 7. januara 1993. godine oni su napali područje Kravice, gdje su ljudima u tom napadu počinili mnogo zla. Pobili su sve one ljude do kojih su došli, a došli su naravno pretjerano do staraca, do žena i tako dalje. Svjedočanstva su groblja, velika groblja oko Srebrenice, po selima.
Joj, 7 godina, joj, vidjela te nisam, joj, sine noći, joj, sine rade.
Ali bio je veliki pritisak srpskog naroda na ovom području i naravno u Republici Srpskoj da srpska vojska odgovori na te napade, da preduzme ofanzivne mjere, da oslobodi.
A camera is there to record the dramatic arrival in Srebrenica of UN commander General Philippe Morillon and his promise of rescue.
You are now under the protection of the UN forces.
Jesam bila u Srebrenici. I kad je rekao da je zaštićena zona, da nama neće ništa faliti, da se budemo u bezbednosti, da skromno spavam, pa jesam bila u Srebrenici, gledala ja Morillona. Jesam ja bila i moja djeca i moj čovjek, svi mi bili smo mi u Srebrenici. Da je zaštićena zona, da nam neće ništa, mislim, smetati, pa mi bili.
In creating the safe area in April 1993, the UN Security Council in New York is responding to the disturbing images coming from the camcorders in the besieged town.
These people in New York reacted to appalling stories of tragedy unfolding before their eyes on television, and they naturally felt they had to do something. And they produced high-sounding resolutions, which we on the ground did not have the ability to execute.
When Dutch UN peacekeepers arrive in January 1995 to watch over the safe area, Warrant Officer Wim Dijkma's camera records their daily life. He is also to record their part in the tragedy of Srebrenica.
We as Dutch came from a quite rich country, not used to war. If you are there, you realize that you don't know the feelings of people who had war for several years. Sometimes I had a feeling I understood the words they said, but I didn't understand the feelings.
As they assemble in their base at Potachari, an old factory just 3 miles north of the town, the new Dutch battalion and their commander, Colonel Ton Karamans, face a mountain of problems.
UN was there to keep peace, but not to enforce it. UN did not have enough equipment or troop strength to enforce anything on any of the warring parties.
In the spring of 1995, the Serbs tightened their stranglehold, cutting off convoys to the safe area. Soon, the Dutch are starved of personnel, ammunition, fresh food and fuel. With most of their vehicles stranded, they're reduced to foot patrols. Hasan Nuhanovic gets a job as an interpreter for the beleaguered Dutch battalion.
From my conversations with the Dutch soldiers, they were just saying, we want to go home, we don't want to stay here, it's not our war, I don't see any sense of staying here.
In early July 1995, Wim Dijkma's camera records the refugees besieged in Srebrenica by the surrounding Bosnian Serb army. The final act in their tragedy is about to begin. On July 6th, Saliha Osmanovic's son, Edin, is killed by a Serb shell which lands near the school in Srebrenica.
Tad nisam mogla da zamislim da će mu da ostane u kazanima u Srebrenici, da ga više nikad.
Her personal anguish is a prologue to the nightmare which is to engulf Srebrenica over the next 9 days.
I personally never expected General Mladic to overrun the enclave because the world was watching.
It was first a little bit foggy, and after the fog went away, the shelling started over again. After a while, we saw a Serb tank drive towards the enclave. After that, the Serb soldiers came to the observation post. So they entered the enclave. You can only guess what's going to happen to you. You don't know for sure. And after a while, they get more aggressive, starting searching for weapons, all kinds of stuff. At that time, the commander of the Bosnian Serbian troops told our commander he didn't control his men anymore, and he asked us to leave.
That was the most important defensive position, because after that hill, you just walk down the slope to the town. So after that moment, people were very worried that the Serbs could just come down the hill to the town. There was no way to stop them.
And at that moment, they threw a hand grenade in the APC. The APC gunner was wounded on his head and fell in the APC. So it was a panic situation, doing everything we can to save our comrade's life and hoping the best of it.
We always thought the Serbs would do that, but in my mind, never occurred that the Muslims would kill one of us. So that was quite a shock for us, and I know it's wrong, and everybody knows it's wrong, but you blame a big part of the population for it.
Really, an open attack at UN was telling the people that if the UN cannot defend its own observation post, how can it defend the people?
Well,
The Muslim got a note and he wrote down 30 Dutch and 30,000 Muslims. He said, as long as the 30 Dutch are in the hands of the Bosnian Serbs, the UN won't risk anything, because your 30 soldiers are even more valuable than the 30,000 Muslims. We still believed that they couldn't capture the entire enclave. UN and the world couldn't just let that happen.
Ajde šefe, napred, ajde napred.
I realized that something very bad was going to happen. I mean that the place was going to fall the evening, the night before the fall, which was 10 July. And I somehow managed to walk through the streets, up the hill to the house where my family was living for 3.5 years. So we made a deal that I take my brother with me because I was kind of hope. I was somebody who could speak English, who could communicate with these foreigners who were so powerful. So my brother was safe with me.
He told us no stone will be on another stone in the southern part after tomorrow, after the airstrikes. So we all were convinced that there would be airstrikes in the southern part.
There was some kind of dead silence, evening of 10 July. Shelling stopped, there was no shooting, which was very, very strange.
Well, at 6 o'clock the bombing should have been started, and we all saw that it was foggy and we knew it wouldn't start yet. So at 7 o'clock some of us went out again and looking, and it was clear again then at that time. So we start waiting.
We were all looking up at the sky. Thousands of people, looking up at the sky, listening to the sound. There were no jets.
We should have known better, because the feeling that the whole world, the UN, Holland, everybody let us down, we had for months. I think from April, that nobody would care about us, and more important, wouldn't care about the refugees. That morning, when it was 8, 9, 10 o'clock, our belief faded away, and we all looked at each other and said, it's again, they dropped us.
This waiting was more terrible than the shooting. So at 10:30 approximately, first shells started to fall down again. There was a stream of people coming down the street, running, children, women, everybody, and the men were running to the woods. That was the moment when everybody separated, in fact. Not one single male believed that once he falls into the hands of the Serbs, he could be treated as a POW or whatever, you know. All boys and grown-up men thought that they have to escape from the Serbs. So that's why most of them decided to go up to the mountains.
It was 36, 37 degrees Celsius. It was very, very hot at that time. A lot of elder people who were trying to help each other towards Potocari, babies, sick people, trying to climb on the APC.
Two mortar shells fell directly, among the people. I felt the blast on my face. It lifted me a little bit from the ground. The Dutch were also panicking. They were running all around the place. I saw some people died immediately on the spot. They were torn apart.
Ja sam htjela da vodim sina u Potečare. Meni čovjek kaže, đeš u ruke da ih vodiš. Krenimo pri Košmije, pa što nam draga Lada vodi. I eto. Evo i kaže, idu. Ja u tom trenutku ništa nisam više znala za sebe i došla sam ko se oče u kazanje, mi sin leži prema u kazanjima što mi je poginuo. Tu sam se rastavila sa svojim sinom Nerminom. Ma jesmo, pozdravili smo se. Šta ja znam, poželili smo jednom drugom da se sretnemo, ali eto, nikad se nismo sreli.
Izašli smo i nismo kuću zaključali. Uzeli smo ključ, a nismo je zaključali. Ja sam izašla u moju avliju, ja sam u avliji imala divno cvijeće. Veliko. I mogu da vam kažem da me sad bole avlije. Ne bole me kuće, ali me bole avlije. Boli me cvijeće. Ruže me bole, srce mi paraju.
I thought the airstrikes, in fact, began. I only heard two very loud explosions, and there were no more explosions, and the Serb shelling even intensified after these explosions.
So there was no airstrike, there was no help from outside the enclave, and that was what we're counting for. And it was very, very tragic at that time, of course. All the men separating from the women. The men went by foot, and all the women and children were coming with us to Potocari. That was very, very, very sad, of course.
I saw the refugees coming in to the compound, the first groups, and we bring them into the big hall where the cars are, and we save them there.
Then I saw my parents coming with some bags, carrying some bags. And they were smiling. They were happy. You know, they were happy to see me. They were happy that my brother was safe. They thought definitely safe, you know. And they just said hello, very satisfied. They entered the base. And that's the moment when I told myself, no problem, I'm doing my job as an interpreter. My parents are in the base, my brother is in the base. The 3.5 years of suffering in Srebrenica is over.
Dobro, znam ja da može neki ide on za mnom polako. Ovo more nema srpska nijedna.
Nijedna.
U Srebrenici.
Nijedna, samo ima da čuti to srpska. Zato sam rekao da je do Borova.
Skini ovu tablu. Ulica Selmanagić, Reuk, Crni. Skinite to. Hajde. Penji se bre čoveče, nemoj da ti govorim 10 puta i ponesi to. Ajde žile, Krstiću. Ajde Krle. Momci, pravac, bratunac, ne ovamo.
Pre 2 godine, 11. jula, čestitam. Ovo je slobodno. A sad smo se našli, evo, komandante. Gospodine predsjedniče.
Evo nas, 11. jula 1995. godine u srpskoj Srebrenici. Uoči još jednog velikog praznika srpskoga poklanjamo srpskom narodu ovaj grad i napokon došao je trenutak da se posle bune protiv Dahija Turcima osvetimo na ovom prostoru.
Kad smo došli u Potočare, meni je se učinilo da je sav svijet tu. Toliko je naroda bilo. Čini mi se kao da nigdje niko nije ostao, kao da gdje god je ko bio, to je tu došlo. Otišli roditelji, djeca ostala. To je opšti haos.
Dutch told interpreters to tell the people, which were thousands, still coming, that no one else can come in, except babies, mothers with babies. They just couldn't believe what they heard. The place fell, they don't let them in. They are stuck.
Bravo. Pravac Potočari, bratunac, nemoj se zaustaviti, hajde. Kreći ispred mene, skroz, hajde. Ajmo, bom. Napred, pravac.
Nemojte kukat, neću, ali koristiti.
The Serbs came and you could notice the fear with the Muslim refugees for the Serbs.
We were a shield, a living shield between the Serbs and the refugees. I heard there were 2 orders. One was to defend them, and the second was, we don't allow you to bring body bags home. So, what do you have to do as a commander then?
Znači, vi ste naredili da vaši vojnici ubijaju vojnike i da avijacija NATO pakta, zahtevali ste da avijacija NATO pakta dejstvuje po mojim trupima.
So you gave an order that your soldiers shoot my soldiers and that NATO aviation, Air Force, bomb my troops and my positions?
No, not again. That's not decided by me. Not asking for. That's something what they offer. They make decisions on what I put on information from the bottom to, let's say, even to United Nations in New York.
Još jednom, ta odluka nije...
Normally I do smoke. And I smoked so much last day.
Ali, nije ti zadnja
I'm wise.
Kako vi vidite razrešenje ove situacije? How do you see the resolution of the situation here?
If I may say something about it,
Ako mogu nešto kažem oko toga?
and it's not the, maybe not the same as what they will say in Sarajevo.
To možda nije isto što će reći u Sarajevu.
Because they're the policy makers.
Da ne stavljaju. Oni su kreatori politike.
In my opinion, the enclave will be ended.
Po mom mišljenju, kraj plan.
And that for the sake of the population.
I zbog dobra stanovništva.
And not for the sake of the BIH.
A ne zbog dobra BiH.
I should assist the population as much as possible get out of the enclave to, I don't know where they have to go.
Znači pomoći stanovništvu da izađe.
Ovdje je samo službeni srpski englez.
The objection because it was in Dutch and we speak here.
Da li je ovdje malo šuški kod?
Ne, prevodila sedmo, ona se vodio.
Prevodila srpski. Oni su ovdje.
Prevodila sedmo, sve se na vidiku, tako. Mi vidio.
Žive, dođe vam.
Došao sam.
Noći su bile hladne. Moj muž je dao svoju jaknu jednoj ženi da zamota jedno dijete od godinu dana. Žena istričala, nije imala ni u što da ga zamota. Ono cvili, plače, navečer ne može da spava. On je dao svoju jaknu, ona ga zamota, dijete zaspa. Cika, vriska, eto, nemam šta da vam kažem. Noćni krici su bili takvi da ja to nikad u životu nisam čula. To nikad nigdje nema. To nema ni u onim zamkovima kad se snimaju filmovi strave i užasa.
Vas molim da zapišete. Pod broj 1 trebate da položite oružje i svima koji polože oružje garantira život. Da li ste me razumeli? Nesibe i u vašim rukama sudbina vašeg naroda. Ne samo na ovom prostoru. Završio sam. Slobodni ste, čekam vas u 10 sati sutra. Ispratite.
Ja vam kažem iskreno da sam slučajno često. Ali ja ne odgovaram na problema.
To je vaš problem. Dovedite ljude koji mogu obezbediti predaj oružja i spasti vaš narod od uništenja.
At 9 o'clock, somebody called my father, as one of the most educated people there, to go for a meeting with General Mladić with other 2 persons.
I trebalo bi se to...
Ja sam Ibra Mladić.
Ibro?
Muhanov. Diplomirani ekonomista. Bivši privrednik. Sad sam tu.
Ja želim da vam pomogu. Ali tražim apsolutnu saradnju civilnog stanovništva jer je vaša vojska poražena. Nema potrebe da ginu baš. Ni vaš muž, ni vaša braća, ni vaše komšije. Dovoljno je da kažete šta želite. I sinoć sam rekao, gospodin, možete opstati ili nestati. Za vaš opstanak tražim da svi vaši muškarci koji su pod oružjem, makar i da su zločine pravili, a i jesu mnogi.
Radi se po mom naređenju, vašeg komandanta, najmanje zanima i trcat ćemo s obom. Dobar dan.
I saw Mladić and he was walking through the crowds and giving the refugees bread and cans of Coca-Cola, something like that. And with all those cameras and stuff, I thought it was more like a propaganda stunt.
Bilo da je malo, veliko, staro ili mlado. Ne bojte se ništa, samo polako. Neka prvo idu žene i djeca. Doće 30 autobusa, prebacit ćemo vas prema Kladnju. Odakle ste preći na teritoriju koju kontrolišu Aline snage.
I saw between 30 and 40 buses coming down the road from town Bratunac. And I saw hundreds and thousands, in fact, of people running towards these buses, trying to board, hoping that these buses would drive them away to some safe place.
Da bi četnici uradili to što su radili, odvojili su sve muškarce od 12 godina pa do 77.
Dobro. Ajde redom tamo za njim. Ne, vi lijevo.
I saw the Bosnian Serbs taking the men out and telling them to go to a house and leave all the possessions in the garden of the house. I told the Bosnian Serbs that I was an officer of the UN at that time and I wanted to see what was going on in the house. They were just gathering men over there. They were very, very scared, of course. And just by being there, that was all we could do. We weren't in control at that time.
I could see some Serbian soldiers. They took a man with them, a Muslim man, and they executed him behind the house. For as far I could see, they didn't know any one of the UN people saw it. They took him behind the house, they put him with his face to the wall and shot him from behind through the head.
I was at the gate looking if I could see some familiar face among the Serb soldiers, because I knew many of them from the meetings, and asked them for a favor to put my brother on one of these buses, so I would not have any worries anymore. But after about 2 hours, I realized that I could not see any men and boys in the buses anymore. It was only women and children.
When I close my eyes and I think back of the refugees, I don't see a man of my age. Nobody. Some women try to tell me that their men were gone and killed by the Serbs. At that time, I didn't know anything and I didn't believe them. So I tried to calm them down. I said, we are here, nothing will happen.
Znate, kad za jedan čas ljudi umiru, vješaju se, oni odvode i kolju i rađaju se ljudi. Sve to u jednom se trenu dešava, nadomak tebi možda od 10 metara. I ti ne znaš šta se dešava. Znate, negdje se život gasi, negdje počinje. Ne znam da vam kažem, ne znam.
There were a lot of soldiers. Every 3 or 4 meters, there were 2 soldiers facing the woods. The Bosnian Muslims would come. They were just waiting for them, and the Muslims couldn't go anyway because the entire road was locked by the Bosnian Serbs.
Ajmo! Požurite malo! Ne mogu kad je ovaj stigo. Prednji. Ovu. Evo ti majica jedna. Ajde, nešto da...
Kroz opkojeni je šta, gdje su vam puške?
Nisam nima puške, ja sam civil.
Civil? Dobro.
Nisam ni vojnik.
Ste mnogo uplašili?
Kako se neš uplašiti?
Ajde, bola, ne boj, šta se bojiš? Ajde, gore, ajde. Ajde, slobodno.
I was crossing a town called Nova Kasaba, and there were a lot of people gathering at the football field of Nova Kasaba. As they were gathering those men as prisoners of war. They were sitting on their knees with their hands in their neck, and they were just lined up, hundreds of men. Yes.
Tek uspijevam da izađemo 13. jula iz Potočara. Tako da ja imam puno sreće, uspijevam da prođem sa djetetom, suprugom, čak je i majka moja bila u kampu i uspijevamo da uđemo u jedan autobus.
Da smo mi tako na red došli, ispred nas odvojili dvojicu mojih komšija, odvojili su dosta i sad je došao red na nas. Mi smo išli kako smo mi naišli, bio je sad jedan punkt, na tome punktu su stajali četnici naoružani i kaže, sad kako mi idemo odozgo, kaže ovaj jedan, ti prođi ovamo, da moj muž prođe ovamo, a ti produži dalje, da ja prođem dalje. I on meni kaže da se ja ništa ne bojim i da se ništa ne plašim, da će biti sve u redu. Jer je toliko toplo bojao se da se ja ne onesvijestim. A njegova ruka je stajala na mom ramenu, ona je drhtala, ona je negdje u dubini moje utrobe gdje drhti i sad, vjerujte. Čini mi se svakog trena ja je osjetim ovdje na ovom mom lijevom ramenu. I taj njegov šapat, onaj vrući koji je dopirao do mog uheta i rekao mi je da se ja ništa ne skiram, da će sve biti u redu. Vidjela sam ga možda još 10 metara dok sam ja zamakla iza onog transportera da s tim kamionom, posle se odmah parkirao drugi, ja ga nikad više nisam vidjela, nikad ništa ne znam za njega. Vjerujte da mi je sad žao da nisam rekla i nemojte ga, ili možda da sam ciknula ili vrisnula ili zatražila neki spas. Čini mi se da bi mi bilo sad lakše živjeti. Samo sam otišla tako nijemo, nisam mogla progovoriti, a suze su tekle ko rijeka. I danas danile, vjerujte.
People had to walk straight from the room to the gate, and at the gate there were at least 10-15 heavily armed, dangerously looking Serb soldiers. You know, very, very threatening look. Together with Dutch. They were all at the gate, together.
For independent television in Belgrade, what's going on today here?
You know what's going on.
I just came here.
You know what's going on.
Jedan od tih vojnika je prišao meni i rekao, dijete ćeš dati suprugi, a ti ćeš poći sa nama. Bio je tu moment možda kada sam ja osjećao veliku tegobu, teškoću, kada sam se razdvajao od svog djeteta. Ali sam to morao da uradim, zato sam odmah dao dijete suprugi i za moment sam pokušao da se okrenem još jednom, da napravim jedan pogled prema djetetu, jer razmišljao sam da će to možda biti zadnji pogled na svoje dijete.
Nermine! Ajde dalam, ja sam dalam, a slobodno kod Srba! Svi ajte!
Bio sam priveden pred jednu osnovnu školu. Broj ljudi u toku dana i u samo predvečerje bio je 22. Ja kada sam tu bio priveden mislio sam jednostavno, u stvari bio sam duboko ubijeđen da moj život je završen i život svih onih ljudi je završen. Poznajući sve ono što se desilo u Srebrenici, da je ta mržnja između ljudi, između te dvije nacije narasla beskonačno visoko, bila je ogromna ta mržnja. Tako da sam sigurno bio ubijeđen da je meni bila samo suđena smrt i svima onima ljudima.
Around 6, when the Dutch realized that I was keeping my family for too long in the office, they came with arms, not pointing their arms at my family, but with arms, you know, all looking at my family, all 6 of them, saying, "You must leave right now. Hassan, tell your family to leave. No discussion."
Oni ulaze u učionici i oni tada počinju sa tučnjavom. Oni su na svako svoje postavljeno pitanje zadavali udarce, bilo šutem nogom, bilo udarac puškom u glavu. Opsao mi mater balijsku, udario me onom šipkom iznad desnog oka. Udarac je bio tako jak da sam na kratko izgubio svijest i da sam osjetio vrelu krv niz lice.
We were all worried about my brother, of course. We were all worried about my brother. I mean, I did not worry about my parents too much. So they walked together towards the gate. On the way we met Major Franken. And Franken says, "Tell your father he can stay in the base because he's one of the negotiators with Mladic and Karamans." My father says, "Sir, what about my wife and son?" Hoping that he would say, "Let them stay too." And he said, "Listen, tell your father, if he doesn't want to stay, he can leave too." You know, my father, this part of the story I cannot really tell you now in details because I don't even know how I could survive this moment at all, looking at my family going to the gate. Nothing can give me resolution. Nothing can give me consolation. You see what I mean? I mean, I have to live with this all my life, and I will definitely always, at least, hate myself for one or another reason. I lay down on the bed and think what I could have done. Sometimes I tell myself, why didn't you grab the pistol from the, Major Franken's holster, put it on his forearm, and said, you have to keep my family in the base. For some reason, at those moments, you are just like kind of, you have no brain. You are so obedient that you just do what they tell you. Not only myself, all the people in the base. Nobody even complained when they walked towards the gate. Just walked, just knowing that they were going to probably die.
Meni je bilo jasno u stvari gdje idemo. Odvoze nas, znači, tamo negdje da nas pobiju. Vojnici išli su sa naoružanjem. U tom momentu, dok ja sjedim, samo sam začuo kratak rafal. Vidio sam da je čovjek oboren i da je upućen rafal prema njemu. Sljedeći čovjek je ponovo oboren. ponovo sljedeći čovjek, trojicu tako ljudi ubivaju. U ovom momentu uspio sam da istrgnem vezu ruku od ruki. Znači, na jednoj ruci je ostala žica, a druga mi je ruka bila slobodna. Nalazim se znači na klupi i u momentu dok su ovu dvojicu ljudi koji su skočili sa kamiona već pobili, ja u tom momentu skačim sa kamiona. Nalazim se na neposrednoj daljini do šumi. Ugledao sam šumu, kako sam skočio, samo je neko viknuo iznad kamiona, pobježe mater mu balisku. Kako sam ulećao u šumu, za moment sam pogodio u granje od šiblja i drveća, posrnuo sam i tako sam pao u jedan dio gdje se nalazio mali potočić u toj šumi. Kada je potpuno paljba prestala, noć dalje je trajala, proveo sam u tom strahu, u tom drhtanju, možda sat, dva, pa možda i 3 sata. Znači, toliko dugo me držao taj jaki strah koji razara jednostavno organizam. Ali se desilo nešto lijepo. U svitanju ljetnog dana, cvrku ptica i pojava ranog svitanja, to me ohrabrilo i unijelo neku hrabrost kod mene da je sad ipak dan, da sad ja mogu drugačije i mogu razmisliti i mogu koristiti u šumi skrovište da bi se mogao i sakriti.
We were in one empty enclave. We were still doing our job, our daily practices, but it was all strange because the enclave was already empty, and we asked ourselves, what are we still doing here? We didn't know what to feel. We didn't know if we still had any feelings.
On Friday, July 14th, the killing of the men of Srebrenica moved beyond the brutal episodes of the previous 2 days and became a highly organized massacre. A machinery of slaughter was set in motion, which, over the next 72 hours, would exterminate thousands of men. War crimes investigator Jean-René Ruiz has built up a detailed account of the events which were to overwhelm the men of Srebrenica.
The real chain of organized killing in the course of that Srebrenica operation start, in fact, the 14th of July. Bratunac town became very quickly a concentration spot for all the prisoners captured. From there, the evacuation of all these prisoners is starting. From Bratunac, they are taking at a distance of about 50 to 70 kilometers up north and scattered in various concentration spots. The first convoys transported prisoners to a school called the School of Gerbavsi, where they were jammed into a gymnasium. That same day, another group of prisoners were transported to the school of Petkovci. These executions have lasted during the afternoon and also part of the night. Some of these executions were still not finished the next day, and wounded were still finished off the day after. Transportation of prisoners from Bratunac was still going on, and these people were taken to a school even more north, in an area we call Pilica. They were then taken to the Braniewo farm for execution. They were executed on that farm from 10 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Once that execution was over, another group of prisoners, which was jammed in a house of culture, was then executed as well. In terms of people assassinated in cold blood and in these conditions, probably above 4,000, around or above 4,000.
Hvala ti Bože.
Djeco mi dali.
Kako otvarač, da ime.
Dobro. Pa ništa se još ne zna.
Justo, odi vam. Samo, ne moraš.
Pozdravite.
Have a safe journey.
Thank you. Vaše u Holandiji.
My
Želim vam
God,
sve najbolje.
Is this for my wife? Wish you all the best. Is this for my wife?
Za vas i vašu suprugu.
For you and your wife.
Okay. Hvala lijepo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Last one? For the trip.
Da nazdravimo. Yes, zdravje. Gospodine generale.
Zdravje.
The feeling was that we were glad to be alive. That was the only feeling. They were just glad to be in Zagreb. You don't think about what could have happened to you. You just think, well, we're out of there and we've made it together.
It gave a feeling that I can't explain. After so many months, after these terrible days, just feeling safe again, knowing that we would go home very soon. On the other hand, the first stories came to us that here and there went killing going on.
Today, the war is over. In the weekend market on the border between Muslim and Serb territories, just a few miles from Srebrenica, people who were bitter enemies meet to haggle and trade. But it's an uneasy peace, watched over and enforced by more than 32,000 UN troops. The 6,000 Americans who patrol the area, including Srebrenica, form part of the international force which maintains the peace in Bosnia. The horror of what happened here finally shocked the international community into action. In the early autumn of 1995, massive airstrikes and a Muslim Croat offensive reversed Serb gains. On November the 21st, 1995, agreement was reached at Dayton, Ohio, for peace in Bosnia. The country was divided into ethnic regions, and Srebrenica became part of Republika Srpska, an entirely Serbian town. Today, Saliha Osmanovic lives in her brother's house near the Muslim town of Tuzla, 40 miles from Srebrenica. She lives alone, haunted by the memories of July 1995.
Ja, pa bom, sa onim svojim čovjekom sam živjela 23 godine. Šta ja znam, fino sam živjela, ono, znaš. Ali sve se živi. Nikad radosti nema.
Hope they won't be. See, there was a path in there.
Saliha Osmanovic has visitors. A team from Physicians for Human Rights have come to compile a detailed picture of her missing husband and son, Ramo and Nermin. They hope that once the details are entered into their computer database, along with thousands of others missing from Srebrenica, they may be able to identify Ramo and Nermin among the bodies so far exhumed.
Sad ćemo malo o fizičkim karakteristikama.
Ne znam.
Reci mi, znaš li ti koliko je Ramo visok? Je li viši od tebi?
Jest.
A znaš koliko si ti?
Jo, kad sam se mjerila prije rata.
Imaš ti šta protiv da ja tebi izmjerim, mami?
Pa ništa, pa sve sam ja sam sve preživjela. Ništa ja nisam protivna, ništa.
Možda zapališ?
Ma ništa, sve tu. Ja sam sve preživjela, sam da me neko zakolje. Ništa ja nemam da ja nešto da sam potrešena. Ja sam potrešena, nemam kudelji. Ma ja. Što imam ja?
Ja stvarno ne želimo da te uznemiravam.
Nemaš ti šta mene uznemirava, čuj.
Aj malo ustanimo mi.
Nema problema, evo ti sam.
I kažeš...
Sejdifa Salkic is also a refugee from Srebrenica, and she well understands the pain involved for Saliha in revisiting the details of her missing husband and son.
Jel ponio sa sobom upaljač, tabakeru, onu kutiju za duhan,
Pa sigurno da jeste ponio.
Jel znaš ti da je
ponio? Ja se ne mogu da sjetim, štaš kad sam ja 6. jula sina ukopala, ako da mi pada na pamet nešto u tom trenucima.
The visitors are careful not to imply that Ramo and Nermin may be dead rather than missing. Many of the women are unwilling to accept the final loss of their husbands and sons, and the teams from Physicians for Human Rights know that success in identifying a body may mean the end of hope for the survivors.
Znaš li?
Doći ti dući meni da kažeš za sina i za muža da idu, to bi ja bila najsrećnija.
Ko ne bi volio?
Papir sve trpi, štaš?
Ko ne bi draga sam?
Ma normalno. Znam.
Mislim, svi mi vole da se tako nešto desi.
Ali Boga mi nema.
After thousands of interviews and years of work, Physicians for Human Rights are still struggling with the obstacles of fading memory to give names to the anonymous dead. To date, they have identified just 70 bodies. War crimes investigator Jean-René Ruiz is following up reports of a mass grave.
We are at the area where the main part of those who fled through the woods started to escape in that direction. For each site which was discovered in the course of this exhumation, every single of them started like this. First collect intelligence, then find the location, then dig a hole to check if there is a presence of multiple remains, multiple meaning mass grave, and then sparkle some exhumation process, which then is completed by experts.
Today, the hours of digging produce no evidence beyond a piece of wire, which may have been used to bind the prisoner's wrists. But Jean-René Ruiz is confident that there is a mass grave here.
If we are unsuccessful with such methods, we'll bring in heavy equipment at a later stage. The level of proof has not to be different than a crime committed in Paris or in New York. The accusations are so heavy at the end of such an investigation that you cannot play with the evidence. You have more and more flesh at the moment you're going down in the grave, and more and more flesh on them.
They're much easier to deal with when they're skeletons, because they become very difficult, and a huge amount of crushing effect, crushing artifact, because one body piled on top of the other.
Police people are more used to some situations, but the fact is that no one is prepared to be confronted to such a massive scale atrocity. It's part of the things that everyone thought were pictures in black and white. No one expected to see them back in color and having to work on them.
Since the first exhumations in 1996, Jean-René Ruiz and his team have been amassing their evidence. Their task has been greatly complicated by the fact that the Serbs reburied many bodies in secondary graves to try and avoid detection. Now, investigations are focused on completing the evidence for the trial of one of General Mladic's most senior officers during the fall of Srebrenica, General Radislav Krstić.
Indictment. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia charges Radislav Krstić with genocide, crimes against humanity, and violations of the laws or customs of war.
General Krstić was detained by SFOR troops in December 1998 and has been held in The Hague awaiting trial since then. He is the highest-ranking officer to face trial for the Srebrenica massacre. General Mladic has been indicted but not yet arrested.
Between 12 July 1995 and 15 July, Radislav Krstić, BRS, participated in numerous opportunistic killings of Radislav Krstić, using automatic weapons and hand grenades, summarily executed approximately 500 summarily executed them, and used heavy equipment to bury the victims in mass graves and cover them with dirt. Or killed most of the members of the Bosnian Muslim population of the Srebrenica enclave. Do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Nisam kriv.
I plead not guilty.
July 10th, 1999. 4 years ago today, Srebrenica was on the verge of a nightmare. Tonight, a young man is getting ready to join the Bosnian Serb army. For him, as for every Serb, it's one of the most important moments of his life, a time for congratulation and celebration. The farewell party is being held in Bratunac, a few minutes from Srebrenica, in the hotel dining room where General Mladic delivered his ultimatums to the Dutch and the refugees. In the days marking the 4th anniversary of the Srebrenica massacre, this was just one of a series of events which laid bare the divisions still separating people here. July 12, 1999, an important Serb holy day, is now an occasion for mourning the victims of the war. For Serbs here, it stirs bitter memories of Muslim raids on the villages around Srebrenica, led by Nasa Oric. July 13th, 1999. At the former Dutch base in Potocari, Muslim women and surviving men join in a prayer for the dead.
Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar.
In Srebrenica, on the anniversary of the massacre, they're celebrating the Serb Holy Day and the moment when General Mladic declared the liberation of Serbian Srebrenica.
Go, i levi kloše. Go. Go.
These days, Nasa Oric is a successful businessman in Tuzla and a fitness fanatic. He still longs to return to Srebrenica, but he's well aware that he continues to inspire hatred amongst the Serbs.
Činjenica je da sam ja bio jedan u Srebrenici od glavnog komandujući. Ako treba da ja odgovaram, ja ću odgovarati. Ali moram prvo izvagati vrijeme, prostor i situaciju u kojoj smo živjeli i ono što su Srbi uradili nama, što smo mi njima. Pa ako treba nasred da odgovara, budem, ja sam tu, ja ne bježim od odgovaranja, ne bježim od suda, ne bježim od Haga, nigdje. Samo trebate me pozvati, nikakav problem nije.
At the tidy headquarters of the International War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague, the work piles up with the bodies. Bosnia, Rwanda, Kosovo. The roll call of enormities seems never ending. A world reluctant to send its troops to intervene in genocide now looks to this place to offer justice. But most indicted war criminals remain free, and the handful of those in custody take years to come to trial. For the desperate widows of Srebrenica, who are still waiting to bury their dead, justice seems painfully remote.
Well, yes, they have every reason to be impatient, and I have a lot of respect for their appetite for a much more expeditious answer. They need answers. They need closure, and I'm very respectful of that. Now, having said that, it takes a lot longer to tell the story of the perpetration of these offenses than to actually commit these offenses. We have, I think, an obligation, as any criminal process, but maybe more so than a domestic criminal process, to get it right, to be as accurate and this will have to stand the test of history.
The minimum that it can create is what one could call the principle of uncertainty, that these people, knowing what they have done, knowing our existence, don't sleep well during the night and live in fear of being captured one day and be held accountable for what they have done, instead of enjoying their lives and build a future based on the atrocities that they have committed. That's already a beginning of an achievement.
For 4 years now, together with the women of Srebrenica, Hasan Nuhanovic has been fighting to uncover the truth about what happened to his family. For all the survivors, the chasm between the slow processes of international justice and the overwhelming need for personal resolution has fueled an angry campaign.
It's a very difficult fight, because we are also under pressure that for the sake of the future of this country, we should not be so hard, you know, with this fight for the truth and justice. There are so many war criminals walking around. The dead bodies are scattered just on the hills. You know, everybody's talking about reconciliation, returns. I don't know how it can go together with this that we are doing. I mean, I think it's not going to be possible to have future of this country without first justice. You know, that should be satisfied.
The women of Srebrenica have come to the tunnels where the bodies still pile up, unidentified. Just 4 years ago today, Ramo Osmanovic called his son Nermin down from the hills. Saliha Osmanovic cannot face the tunnel. For her, there is no answer here and no justice.
Om efterkommerne og ofrene for den slags krigsforbrydelser, vi lige har set, nogensinde vil opnå en form for gyldig retfærdighed, er svært at udtale sig om. Men retssagen mod Radovan Karadzic ved krigsforbryderdomstolen i Haag begynder i slutningen af denne måned. Der er flere følelser på spil om lidt her på DR2, for der tager Sissel Jogasan os med på en rejse ind i kærlighedens univers. Det er lige efter et kig på aftenens drama.